Welcome back to another episode of Prospect Watch presented by the Rookie HQ. And we're here today, as we always do. We're going to break down the rookies. We follow the rookies from, this phase of the offseason, the prospect evaluation season, all the way up through the draft, all the way up through the rookie year. So more content to come as always. But today we're here to break down the number one tight end in this class for me, Oregon's Kenyon Sadiq. So Oregon's Kenyon Sadiq, former Idaho State Player of the Year, limited production profile, but I mean he was stuck behind a guy who went in the top 50 of the NFL draft, and then this year he leads the nation and he leads the FBS in touchdowns for tight ends. So finally got the opportunity to break out and then broke out. Kenyon Sadiq, just physically 6'3", 245 pounds, projected, he made Bruce Feldman's freaks list, projected, I think he's been recorded as a 41.5-inch vertical. He's projected to run in the 4.5s. I do think that is going to vault his draft stock up some. You've seen some mock drafts where Mr. Sadiq was mocked, in the mid-round, in the middle of the first round to the Chiefs, and then some on NFL mock draft database where he slides all the way to the back of the first round to like the Broncos and even sometimes to the Eagles. So all of those teams will have needs at the position, so that makes sense. But let's talk a little bit more about what makes him such a hot commodity. So with Kenyon Sadiq and the athleticism that I alluded to earlier, Sadiq is able to be just a bona fide mismatch. He had, 6 games this year with at least a 50% percentage of alignment from the slot, which alludes to today's NFL, where you had 10 tight ends get at least 50 targets and a 50% alignment from the slot rate. So the questions that we do have about his inline blocking capabilities and his ability to play as an inline tight end seem somewhat overblown, considering that the NFL has made the shift. Mark Andrews has lived in the slot for years. Brock Bowers just broke every record known to man, and he lines up in the slot more than any other tight end. Not saying that he's Brock Bowers, but I do believe that he is a high-end tight end one the minute that he steps into a full-time role on an NFL field. So going back to not just the athleticism, but the ability, there's questions about his ability to run block. And with that, I would allude to, his 80 plus PFF grade. I don't know if you guys subscribe to that, but an 80 plus PFF grade on 3 different occasions as a run blocker, 2 coming at the end of the season versus Washington and James Madison. And there was another earlier in the season as well. So you have a complete tight end prospect in today's NFL, as it's as good as you're going to get. And he's the best in this class, hands down. So there's questions about his size. Again, he's listed at 6'3", 43 pounds, 245 pounds, according to PFF. Brock Bowers, I was going to say, is 6'3", 243 pounds. Trey McBride, the all-time receptions leader for a single season, comes in at 6'4", 247 pounds. So you don't try to square peg round hole this thing with a guy like Kenyon Sadiq. You go and you accentuate his strengths and make him, into a complete mismatch, which is exactly what he was for the University of Oregon this season. Now, the production concerns, we could address that. Again, he was playing behind a top 50 pick. And when you're playing behind a top 50 pick, you're not always going to get the ball. What I can say is that on the 27 targets that he did receive last year when he was playing behind Terrence Ferguson, is that you saw the athletic ability. He flashed. He caught a touchdown, a pretty impressive touchdown in the game against Penn State in the Big Ten championship at the beginning of 2025. So, man, at the end of 2024, the beginning of 2025. And, I had my eye on him then, and he just did nothing to disappoint me. Another example of the elite athleticism is the absolute car crash that he got into, catching his second touchdown of the day versus USC this year. So you see a guy who can play the ball, in the air. He's an easy separator. I still don't think that this offense unlocked what could be. It's the same problem that I have with Eli Stowers, who we'll break down at a different day. But this offense didn't take his skill set and accentuate it in a way in which it would clearly show that, look, this is an elite prospect. So I believe that he's going to be a day one contributor, easy separator. mismatch for linebackers and a nightmare for safety. So he's going to be too fast and too agile for linebackers and way, way, way too big and strong to be covered by a safety. So you're going to stick a nickel corner on him and you're going to devote that type of asset to a too small tight end. Good luck. And then just the notion that he's too small to play tight end in the NFL, it kind of goes away if you just look at today's tight ends and then think about what exactly it is that they're supposed, like what do we have them out here to do? Do we have them out here to catch? Do we have them out here to catch passes? Do we have them out here to block 7 techniques? I mean, there's a little bit of that in his profile as well. So I think that this is a slam dunk prospect. Now, watch this. I'm gonna have egg on my face if if he doesn't pan out. But we get the whole year for you guys to tell me in the comments that I'm wrong. So addressing some of the weaknesses, I do want to see more discipline and refinement in his, in his route running. I would like to see a little bit more attention to detail in terms of, his breaks and then maybe understanding where to sit in zones versus, just being able to run into space. He was playing with, a top quarterback prospect in Dante Moore. Now, Dante Moore has returned to the University of Oregon, which kind of saddens me because I was looking forward to breaking down his tape and talking about how, he took a step forward in his journey and his path. But that's a different story for a different day. Kenyon Sadiq here is a guy who has the ability to be a matchup nightmare. Worst case scenario, I feel like he could give you what Kyle Pitts gives you if you were willing to target him 100 times. And Kyle Pitts just went for 88 for 928 and 5 touchdowns this year. So a pretty high ceiling for a tight end. And I think it could only grow from there. He's going to earn the trust. Again, this was his first year as a full-time player. 67 targets, 51 receptions, 580 yards, and 8 touchdowns, 560 yards, and 8 touchdowns, which led the position in all of FBS. So it's kind of hard to argue, it's a little hard to argue that he shouldn't be, the tight end one. I know Eli Stowers won the Mackey Award, but again, when you're able to look at the profile, the athletic ability, his ability to create separation, I believe he comes in at over almost 2 yards per route run, which is an excellent number for tight ends. And the production once he became a full-time player, it's just almost impossible to deny his ability to be a star at the next level, and that's absolutely what I believe Kenyon Sadiq is. So you have, again, let's review. So he's 6'3", he's 245 pounds. He was one of the best, if not, you'll have some people say Max Clare was the best tight end in the Big Ten, this year. I don't mind that. That's fine. Whatever. But you have the athleticism, 41.5-inch vertical. He made Feldman's freaks list, and that shows up on the tape. And then you have the opportunity for growth. So this is a guy that I feel like is almost a can't miss prospect at tight end. And coming off of a historic class who we were all over last year, it makes it a lot easier to say, hey, we're living in a new era now. First it was Sam Laporta, then it was Brock Bowers, then we got a quad pack, not even a tri pack, like I would say. You got the Tyler Warrens, you got the Colston Lovelands, you got the Harold Fannons, you got the Aronde Gadsdens, and now we're living in a new NFL. So again, 10 tight ends with at least 50 targets and a 50% slot rate in the snap. So could he be, Mike Gesicki? Absolutely. Could he be a Sam Laporta for an offense and be extremely fantasy relevant and burst onto the scene? Absolutely. We're seeing it more and more. So it just gives me more confidence that a team is going to be able to select Kenyon Sadiq, and we will all profit from it because he does have transcendent skills. So if you made it this far into the video, thank you for listening, liking, commenting, downloading, subscribing, helping us grow the channel here at the Rookie HQ. I'm Chev. If you want, follow me on X. It's at Chev90, and then there's a link tree with everything that I'm working on. Until next time, this is Prospect Watch. We'll see you.